Thousands of years ago, a simple mistake could destroy an entire life. A stolen piece of food, a forgotten promise, a word spoken against a powerful ruler. In today's world, criminals face courts, laws, and prisons. But in the ancient world, justice looked very different. There were no modern prisons, no human rights systems, no guarantees of a fair trial. Instead, many civilizations created punishments designed not only to correct crime, but to create fear. Because ancient rulers understood one powerful idea. If one person suffered publicly, thousands of others would remember the lesson. Before we explore the darkest punishments in history, we must understand one important question. Why did ancient societies punish people so severely? The answer was not always simple revenge. For many civilizations, punishment was created to protect the things they valued most. Property, power, honor, and social order. A person who stole food was not only seen as someone taking an object, they were challenging the rules that protected the community. A soldier who betrayed his army was not only breaking a promise, he was threatening the survival of an entire kingdom. A person who insulted a king was not only speaking words, they were challenging the authority that held society together. In the ancient world, a crime was often seen as something bigger than one person's mistake. It was viewed as a danger to everyone. That is why punishments were often designed to send a message that could be seen, heard, and remembered. A public punishment was not only about the person standing in front of the crowd, it was about everyone watching. It was a warning, a reminder, and sometimes a demonstration of power. Among all ancient civilizations, few understood the power of public punishment better than Rome, an empire built on discipline, military strength, and absolute authority. And inside that empire, breaking the rules could change a person's fate forever. Among all ancient civilizations, few understood the power of punishment better than Rome. Rome was one of the greatest empires the world had ever seen. Its armies conquered vast territories. Its roads connected distant lands. Its laws influenced generations that came after. But behind this powerful civilization was a system built on strict control. In Rome, maintaining order was everything. And when someone threatened that order, the punishment could become a warning for everyone. One of the most common crimes in ancient Rome was theft. A person could steal money from a marketplace, take valuable goods from another person's home, or secretly remove supplies that belonged to the state or the army. But in Roman society, the reason behind the crime often mattered. A poor person stealing food because of hunger, a criminal repeatedly breaking the law, or someone stealing from a powerful citizen could all be viewed very differently. The punishment was not only about what was taken, it was also about who was affected. When someone was accused of a crime, they could be brought before Roman authorities. Witnesses were questioned, evidence was examined, and a decision was made. But Roman justice had another purpose beyond judging guilt. It wanted people to remember. A punishment hidden away in darkness would only affect one person, but a punishment witnessed by hundreds, or even thousands, could influence an entire population. This was why public punishment became such an important part of Roman society. The streets, the squares, and the great arenas became places where law and power were displayed. The person being punished was not only facing the consequences of their actions, they were also becoming a symbol that told everyone watching, the empire is stronger than the individual. Breaking the rules has consequences, and no one stands above Rome. But Rome feared one crime more than ordinary theft, a crime that threatened the empire itself: betrayal. A soldier who abandoned his duty, a citizen who helped an enemy, a person who challenged the authority of the state. These acts were not viewed as simple mistakes. They were seen as attacks against the entire civilization. For Rome, loyalty was the foundation of survival. Without loyal soldiers, the borders could collapse. Without obedience, the government could lose control. Without fear, the empire believed chaos would return. That is why punishment was sometimes designed not only to punish the person, but to remove the desire of others to follow the same path. Yet history leaves us with a difficult question. When punishment becomes a public performance, is it still about justice, or does it become a way for those in power to show their strength? The Roman Empire eventually disappeared. Its buildings became ruins, its rulers became memories. But the idea of using fear to control society would continue to appear throughout human history. And thousands of years later, another civilization would create a punishment that attacked something even deeper than the body. It attacked a person's memory itself. Beyond the endless deserts of Egypt, Beyond the giant pyramids that still stand after thousands of years, there was a civilization that believed something more powerful than life itself: memory. To the ancient Egyptians, a person's existence did not end when their body disappeared. A person could continue to live through their name, through their statues, through the stories carved into stone. But this belief created one of the most mysterious punishments in human history, a punishment worse than simply dying: being forgotten. Ancient Egypt was built on the idea of balance, a force they called Ma'at, the balance between order and chaos, between humans and the gods, between the living world and the afterlife. At the center of this balance stood the pharaoh. The ruler was not seen as just a king. Many Egyptians believed the pharaoh was chosen to protect the connection between humanity and the divine world. So when someone betrayed the pharaoh, they were not only breaking a law, they were challenging the order of the universe itself. Imagine a powerful official inside the palace, someone trusted with secrets, someone who had access to important information. But one day, that person makes a choice. A secret message is sent to an enemy. A military plan is revealed. A rebellion begins in the shadows. To the Egyptians, this was more than betrayal. It was a wound against the kingdom, and wounds against the kingdom had to be erased. But the Egyptians had a unique idea of punishment. They believed destroying a person's body was not enough, because the body was only temporary. The true danger was something much deeper: their identity, their memory, their place in eternity. The ancient Egyptians believed that names carried power. A person's name connected them to the world. It allowed them to be remembered. It allowed their spirit to continue existing. So one of the most terrifying punishments was damnatio memoriae, the destruction of memory. The name of the criminal could be removed from stone walls. Their statues could be damaged. Their achievements could disappear. Their existence could slowly be erased. Picture walking through an ancient temple thousands of years later. You see the names of kings, the names of warriors, the names of important people. But one name is missing: the space where someone once existed, now empty. No story, no recognition, no memory, only silence. For the person receiving this punishment, death was not the greatest fear. The greatest fear was that nobody would remember they ever existed. Their enemies would continue. Their family would continue. The world would move forward, as if they had never been there. And perhaps that is what makes this punishment so haunting, because humans have always feared the same thing: not only losing life, but losing meaning, losing identity, losing the proof that we were ever here. Today we walk among Egyptian ruins and wonder about the people who built them. We remember their kings, their architects, their stories. But somewhere beneath the desert, there are forgotten names. People whose entire existence was removed from history. Not because they were never important, but because someone powerful decided they should be forgotten. Thousands of years later, their names may be gone, but the mystery remains. Because the ancient Egyptians left behind a question that still follows humanity today: is being forgotten truly a fate worse than death? After the fall of Rome, a new world rose across Europe. A world of towering castles, endless forests, small villages surrounded by stone walls, and a society where your name, your family, and your reputation could decide your entire future. In this world, a simple mistake could follow a person for the rest of their life. For ordinary people living in medieval Europe, survival was never easy. A poor farmer depended on a successful harvest. A worker depended on the small amount of money they earned each day. A family depended on the protection of their community. So when someone broke the rules, the consequences could be severe. A person stealing bread because of hunger, a merchant cheating customers, a soldier breaking an oath, a villager refusing the authority of a lord. Each action could be seen as a threat to the fragile order of medieval society. But medieval people had a different idea of punishment. The goal was not only to stop the criminal. The goal was to make sure everyone else remembered. Because in a world without modern police forces, fear became a powerful tool. A punishment hidden inside a castle would affect only one person, but a punishment witnessed by an entire village could become a story repeated for generations. Imagine a cold morning in a medieval town. The streets are covered with fog. The sound of bells echoes from a stone church. People slowly gather in the town square. They know something is about to happen. At the center of the square stands one person, alone, surrounded by hundreds of eyes. The accused person is no longer just a neighbor, no longer just a farmer, no longer just a member of the community. At that moment, They become a warning. Their mistake becomes a story. Their shame becomes a lesson. For many medieval societies, reputation was everything. A person's honor could determine whether they were trusted, whether they could work, whether they could remain part of the community. And losing that honor could be devastating. Because humans do not only fear physical pain, they fear rejection. They fear isolation. They fear becoming someone that nobody wants to stand beside. This is why public punishment became so important. The crowd was not there by accident. They were part of the message. A ruler or local authority wanted people to remember the consequences of breaking the rules. The punishment was a performance. The town square became a stage, and fear became the language everyone understood. But behind many of these punishments was a deeper question. Was the person truly dangerous? Or were they simply trapped by the world they were born into? A starving person stealing food, a desperate person breaking a law, a powerless person challenging someone stronger. History often leaves these questions unanswered. Today, medieval castles stand empty. The villages have changed. The voices of the crowds have disappeared. But their stories remain. Stories of people who were judged, people who were punished, people who became examples of what society feared. And perhaps the darkest part of medieval justice was not the punishment itself. It was the idea that one person's suffering could be used to control the actions of everyone else. Because when fear becomes the foundation of justice, the line between protection and cruelty becomes very difficult to see. But medieval Europe was not the end of humanity's search for control. Across different cultures and different centuries, people continued creating new ways to punish. Some targeted the body, some targeted the reputation, and some targeted something even more fragile, the human mind. Throughout history, humans created countless ways to punish those who broke their rules. Some punishments were created to stop criminals, some were created to protect society, but others had a darker purpose, to break a person's spirit. Because ancient rulers discovered something terrifying. A person can survive physical pain, but losing their identity, their freedom, and their connection to others can destroy them from within. In many ancient societies, one of the most powerful punishments was not a weapon. It was isolation, being separated from family, being removed from the community, being treated as someone who no longer belonged. For humans, connection has always been necessary for survival, so taking away that connection became a punishment that reached deeper than the body. Imagine a person returning to their village, but nobody speaks to them. Nobody opens their door. Nobody shares food with them. The streets are familiar, but suddenly they are walking through a world where they no longer exist. The punishment is not only loneliness, it is the feeling of becoming invisible. Other societies focused on shame. A person's mistake was displayed publicly. Their actions became known by everyone around them. Their reputation was damaged. Their family carried the weight of their name. Because in many ancient cultures, honor was not just personal. It belonged to the entire family. A person could lose their position, lose their status, lose the respect they had spent years building. And once that reputation disappeared, it could be almost impossible to recover. But perhaps the most mysterious punishments were those connected to memory. Many civilizations believed that being remembered was a form of survival. A name carved into stone, a statue in a temple. The story passed through generations. These things allowed a person to continue existing beyond their lifetime. So destroying someone's memory became a powerful symbol. Imagine discovering an ancient monument. The names of kings are written across the walls. The names of warriors. The names of important figures. But one section has been carefully destroyed. Someone wanted a person to disappear. Not only from society, but from history itself. Why did humans create punishments like these? Because ancient societies were often built on fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of rebellion. Fear of chaos. A ruler who could create fear, could create obedience. But history reveals something interesting. The civilizations that used these punishments believed they would last forever. They believed their power was permanent. Their laws were eternal. Their enemies would be forgotten. Yet today, many of those rulers are gone. Their kingdoms have disappeared. Their monuments are broken, and the people they tried to erase are still remembered through the stories left behind. Perhaps this is the greatest irony of history. Those who tried to control memory could not control time. Those who tried to create fear could not escape being forgotten themselves. And after thousands of years of punishment, one question remains. Were these punishments truly created to protect society? Or were they created because humans have always struggled with the desire to control one another? the answer may reveal more about humanity than about the criminals themselves. Thousands of years have passed. The great empires of the ancient world have disappeared. The arenas of Rome are silent. The temples of Egypt stand among the desert sands. The castles of medieval Europe have become ruins. But the stories of punishment remain, not because we admire them, but because they reveal something about humanity itself. When we look at ancient punishments today, it is easy to see only cruelty. We see fear. We see suffering. We see systems that seem impossible to understand. But history is more complicated than that. Every punishment was created by people who believed they were protecting something important. The Romans wanted order. The Egyptians wanted balance. The medieval world wanted stability. They were all trying to answer the same question. How do we stop people from destroying the society we have built? But perhaps the most important lesson from history is this. Punishment does not only reveal the person being punished, it reveals the society creating the punishment. A civilization afraid of losing power creates harsh laws. A civilization afraid of chaos creates strict control. A civilization obsessed with honor creates punishments that attack reputation. In every era, the way humans punish others shows what they fear the most. A thief was not always just a thief. Sometimes they were a person trapped by poverty. A traitor was not always just a traitor. Sometimes they were a person caught between loyalty and survival. A criminal was not always just a criminal. Behind every punishment was a human story. A choice, a mistake, a moment that changed everything. And this leads to the final question, one that has followed humanity for thousands of years. Does punishment truly create justice, or does it only create fear? Because fear can force people to obey, but fear cannot always create understanding. It can control actions, but it cannot always change hearts. The ancient world believed that the strongest punishment would create the strongest society. They believed that public fear would prevent future crimes. They believed that destroying an enemy's name would erase their influence forever. But history showed something unexpected. Empires built on fear eventually disappeared. Kings who demanded absolute loyalty were forgotten. Rulers who tried to control history became part of history themselves. And perhaps the greatest mystery is not why ancient humans created terrible punishments. Perhaps the greater mystery is this. Why do humans in every generation continue searching for ways to control each other through fear? Today, we live in a world very different from the ancient past. We have courts, we have laws, we have systems designed to protect rights and dignity. But the questions from history still remain. When someone breaks the rules, do we only see the crime, or do we try to understand the person behind it? Because the darkest chapters of history are not only about criminals, they are about choices. Choices made by rulers, choices made by societies, choices made by ordinary people watching from the crowd. The ancient punishments are gone, the kingdoms are gone, the voices of those who created them have disappeared. But the lesson remains. The way we punish others will always reveal who we truly are. So perhaps the real story behind ancient punishments is not, how did humans punish criminals? The real story is, what does our idea of justice say about humanity? The sound of wind crossing forgotten ruins. A final echo fading into silence.